From KAMR Local 4 News, your local election headquarters, this is Politics Today.
The Amarillo City Council and AEDC discussing proposed amendments to the Articles of Incorporation. Details on what they discussed during this past meeting. On the ballot for many voters on the High Plains, there will be a tax rate proposition for your school district. We'll tell you more about 7 districts in our area as early voting continues. Weeks after the Amarillo City Council told the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation their outside counsel would draft Articles of Incorporation, most of the 3-hour City Council meeting on Tuesday was about the proposed amendments from the council's outside attorney, George Hyde. He notified that they weren't changing all of their Articles of Incorporation, just proposing 5 amendments, focusing on proposed Article 2. This defines the AEDC as a Type A corporation. Type A and B economic development corporations differ in the range of projects they can undertake. Article 4 defines specific purposes, powers, and restrictions. And Article 5 deals with the regulation of the corporation's internal affairs. The purpose is, according to Hyde, is to get the AEDC, in his words, aligned with state law.
Every one of his recommendations is not there to hinder or harm our EDC in any way. And so even to the point with Councilmember Simpson of, you know, this is a lot and is it going to hurt the way we compete? These articles are in no way going to hurt the way you compete for those businesses that you're trying to attract to Amarillo. And so we are doing what we feel is in the best interest of both bodies to rectify what was wrong.
Now, we've been told Hyde is expected to work with the AEDC board staff and attorneys to go over these proposed amendments and answer any questions. Here's Kevin Carter.
Get a document that everybody can move forward with the AEDC. I think, the collaboration hopefully will be important, and the work that the board and the council and then the 2 attorneys do can move us forward and get back to doing the business of AEDC.
Amarillo City Council has a little more than 2 weeks until their next meeting, and they can revisit the proposed amendments. Most of the changes really are proposed in Article 5. If passed, the Amarillo City Council would act as, quote, a parent, that's as Hyde called it, to the AEDC. The proposed amendment would make the AEDC present all programs and expenditures of the corporation to City Council before any expenditure is made. The AEDC would also prepare their budget in a line item format. And the amendment says no budget line item adjustments are permitted without first documenting proper approval from the AEDC board and the City Council. Amarillo City Council and AEDC Board of Regents met again Wednesday morning. Among the topics for that meeting was a discussion about economic development corporations and their importance to a city. They also discussed how to move forward and how this issue from the start to finish has looked to the public and those outside the city, like businesses and corporations. Now, this all stems from the investigation into the $750,000 wire transfer that happened in 2023. We've covered this story since the beginning. There's a lot to go through. We just touched on a little bit of it today. You can read more about the investigation and how it's evolved over on our website, myhighplains.com. Also last week, Amarillo City Council unanimously approved the contract for new LED park lighting and control system for Mary Hazel Rigg Park. It's a $123,000 contract that has been awarded to Musco Sports Lighting LLC. Officials say the funding for this project is coming from the American Rescue Plan Act funding and Neighborhood Initiative general funds. As early voting continues, several school districts on the High Plains have their tax rates going to a vote. A 3-cent tax rate increase for those in the Canyon School District. That increase would fund the maintenance and operations budget. That funds things like safety, security, and armed officers, student programs, additional bus routes, and things like insurance and utilities.
The tax rate election, should it pass, would reduce the deficit budget from approximately $5,500,000 that we're projecting to approximately just $500,000.
For a $100,000 home, the increase would be an extra $27 a year. Perryton ISD is asking to move 3 cents from their interest and sinking tax rate over to their maintenance and operational tax rate. We spoke with the superintendent, who told us if passed, that money would help give their teachers and non-certified staff a raise and purchase buses. Important to note here, this movement of money will not increase the overall tax rate in the district.
We had a couple of pennies that weren't being used in the interest and sinking because we didn't sell some of the bonds from our last bond issue. So we had some space there. So we're just asking the community to let us move those 3 pennies over into our M&O tax rate.
Okay, so Brown says if it fails, the money generated in interest and sinking will be used for an early bond payout instead. Politics Today's Princess Bryant has been reaching out to several other school districts in our area to learn more about what voters will see on those ballots. Here's what they had to say.
On the ballot for Hutchinson County, voters will be able to vote in favor of or against Borger ISD Proposition A tax rate that will ratify the ad valorem tax rate of $1.13 for the current year. The proposition will also add an additional $522,500 to M&O budget compared to last year, and increase taxes on $100,000 homes by $50 compared to last year.
For the 2024-25 budget, we have a deficit. The 5-cent VATRE election would generate $1.5 million. Approximately $500,000 of those funds would come from local revenue, and the other $1 million would come from state revenue.
If passed, the proposition will increase maintenance and operations tax revenue by 11.1% compared to last year.
Funds would go to classroom technology, enhancing safety and security, and competitive salaries for teachers and staff.
But if the proposition does not pass during this election cycle,
we'll look for opportunities to reduce personnel when they show themselves to be an opportunity to reduce our funding for that.
Bushland ISD will also have a proposition for Potter County voters to vote on. The proposition will be able to vote in favor of or against ratifying the ad valorem tax rate of $1.06 in the district for the current year, a rate that will result in an increase of 5.53% in maintenance and operation tax revenue for the district.
Additional funding will be used for salaries for staff to meet the safety and security measures across the district, as well as support our current instructional programs in the district.
Giles says that the proposed tax rate on this ballot is actually less than last year's total tax rate.
2023, the homestead exemption was increased to $100,000. That, in addition to the tax rate compressions by the state, are the reasons why we're pursuing the voter approval tax rate election.
Voters will also see Derazette ISD proposition on their ballots, which asks to vote in favor of or against ratifying the ad tax rate of $1.34 in the district for the current year. If passed, this will actually give a negative increase of 29.74% in maintenance and operation tax revenue for the district.
Language is negative, and the reason that ballot language is negative is because we are seeing a decrease in taxable property values of $25 million. And so that decrease is affecting the tax funding, and we're going into negative balance there.
Wynette explains how the district will benefit if the proposition is passed.
If VATR does pass, it will bring in about $115,000 for the district, and that additional funding, we will use it for increases to teacher salaries and also to our support staff, maintenance, office staff, paraprofessionals, custodials, cafeteria. They would all also receive an increase in salary.
If you're looking at a Lipscomb County ballot in the next few weeks, you'll see Proposition A for Follett ISD. If passed, it will ratify the ad valorem tax on 1.01 in the district for the current year, a rate that will result in negative 30.7% in maintenance and operations tax revenue. Follett ISD Superintendent Megan Robinson said in a statement confirming that if passed, that would decrease the amount the district collects for maintenance and operations compared to last year. That's because their property values went down by 37%. She asked the district will receive $276,000 less in funding from local revenue. McLean's ISD proposition will ratify the ad valorem tax rate of 0.9847. It results in a negative 3.7% in maintenance and operations tax revenue, which will add negative $28,000 to that budget. In a statement sent to us by the district's business manager, Amy Calvert explained that although ballot language says an increase, the numbers are negative due to a significant decrease in the district's taxable values, and that the adopted tax rate will raise more taxes for maintenance and operations compared to last year, and that the taxes on a $100,000 home would increase by negative $217.
Now, we're told the district's website explains a little bit more on the negative tax rate that is seen on the ballot and what that means. For more schools who will have a negative tax rate on the ballot this election season, the story continues at myhighplains.com. The delayed construction on a bridge in North Amarillo causing some serious backlash from the community. Coming up, we're going to hear what the construction company behind the project has to say about it. The BNSF Railroad Bridge over Amarillo Boulevard has been a thorn in the side of North Amarillo residents since 2021, and we've reported on the recent thefts that caused the project to be delayed even further. We exclusively spoke with Capel Construction, the new construction company on that project, to find out what happened. Politics Today's Rochelle Hamilton Jr. has the story.
We previously introduced you to James Allen and Keith Grays, two North Amarillo residents who spoke of the frustration of the delayed construction on the BNSF bridge over Amarillo Boulevard.
This is a main corridor of Amarillo for people who are working class citizens. We shouldn't have to do this.
This project been sitting still so long. People have gone in and stolen property and of course sold the steel.
To recap, TxDOT defaulted the previous contractor on the bridge for a lack of progress, assigned the contract to a new company named Capel Construction Company, who had the project delayed due to theft of construction materials. We spoke with Capel Construction reps who opted not to go on camera, and they tell us there was a rash of break-ins at the laydown yard near the construction. Thieves stole reinforcing steel, fencing, and specialty equipment. Capel says employees were assessing equipment to begin work and discovered the materials were missing. When this happened, they had to start the entire ordering process over to ensure they had everything needed to complete the project. Capel says the agreement was further complicated for both them and TxDOT because BNSF had many requirements like lifting requirements, access requirements, and others that had to be met for work to resume. With all of this, we're told they had to start almost from square one with submittals, assessments, etc. Capel says they're working on some temporary shoring in the railroad right-of-way currently, and we drove by the site yesterday, and there are workers and equipment out there, so progress is being made.
We know that it's been a frustrating project. I know TxDOT's a little bit frustrated with this one, so we can only imagine the frustration for the people that drive on it every day, and they have to see all those orange cones. But we just really ask the public to continue being patient with this, continue working with us on this.
Bridge says with the delays, the current projected completion date of the project is summer 2025. In Amarillo, Rochelle Hamilton Jr.
Here are some pictures provided to us from that construction company of a suspected vehicle going into and exiting the layover yard near the construction site and what appears to be a trailer loaded with materials. If you have any information on those thefts, you're asked to contact Amarillo Police. We reached out to BNSF for comment on this story, and we're told they would get back to us. After follow-up attempts for comment, we still haven't heard back. Amarillo College is one step closer to selecting a new president. Monday night, the Board of Regents announced that Dr. Frank Sobey and Dr. Jamel Connor were the two finalists chosen. They had finalists earlier in the spring, but neither were offered the position. The application period opened back up in July. They're scheduled to announce the new president by December.
By far the most impressive of the candidates, and I think would be a really good fit for Amarillo College. And we're excited to be able to interview them and hear more about each of them and just decide the best fit. This is probably the most important decision we make as a Board of Regents.
The Board of Regents will interview both candidates, then decide if one or both go to the final round before making a decision. They expect interviews to be scheduled within the next few weeks. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton files a lawsuit against the Biden administration. Why another government department says the information they seek is readily available. Welcome back, everyone. Texas is suing the Biden administration to obtain citizenship and immigration records for registered voters. Attorney General Paxton claims they don't know the citizenship status of nearly 500,000 voters because they didn't register with a state ID. He says most of them are likely citizens, but we can't know for sure without data from Homeland Security. Politics Today's Ryan Chandler has more.
Are there almost 500,000 potentially fraudulent voters in Texas? No, not close. In his latest lawsuit, Attorney General Paxton says the 450,000 voters in question are likely eligible to vote, but he needs more data from the feds to be sure, writing, Texans are increasingly concerned about the possibility of non-citizen voting.
This is not a real lawsuit. This is a messaging stunt.
Election law experts are highly skeptical.
There is absolutely no evidence of non-citizens on the voter registration rolls in Texas. And in fact, the state of Texas already went through an extensive process this summer where they removed hundreds of thousands of people from the Texas voter registration rolls for all sorts of reasons.
We asked DHS to respond to the lawsuit. They tell us they have been engaging with Texas, but they already have an online database that any state can use to check citizenship records, essentially telling Texas, you should be doing this yourself. On top of that, this lawsuit comes during a grace period in federal law, where states can't remove voters from the rolls anymore because it's so close to the election.
That begs the question of what is this and why is Paxton spending our taxpayer dollars to do this? Well, the lawsuit is strikingly similar to one that was filed by the state of Florida last week. And essentially, it is a messaging effort.
We asked Attorney General Paxton's office for more information and have not yet received a response.
Federal and state law requires voter roll maintenance. A majority of those removed were taken off because they died, failed to respond to notices from election officials, or just moved out of the state. Federal law doesn't allow people to be removed from the roll within 90 days of an election. In the Texas Senate race, both candidates are flexing their crossover appeal, and both have won some notable endorsements from the other party. Up next, why the candidates are courting the other side and if it could be effective. In the razor-tight race for U.S. Senate, Ted Cruz and Colin Allred are flexing their bipartisan credentials. Both are touting endorsements from the other party, hoping to convert some voters to cross the line. Politics Today's Ryan Chandler sat down with two influential politicians, a Republican and a Democrat, who have both decided to endorse the candidate from the other party. They both say they're putting the country first, but could the crossover appeal make a difference?
I am a Texan and I'm an American long before I'm a Republican.
Glenn Whitley spent nearly 3 decades on the Tarrant County Commissioner's Court, all of them as a conservative Republican. But this year, he says Ted Cruz has to go.
And I think the straw that, for me, broke the camel's back was the insurrection on January the 6th.
Tarrant County is perhaps the most competitive in Texas politics. Whitley says Tarrant County voters look at principle, not party.
It's about the character. I believe that this race for our Senate seat is one that people are going to look at Colin Allred and say he is that moderate in the middle.
Down in the Rio Grande Valley, longtime state senator Eddie Lucio is a kingpin of South Texas politics, a Democrat in the Texas Senate for 32 years. He's all for Ted Cruz.
I know that with him, we're going to have someone that will protect the unborn.
Lucio has long been a conservative Catholic Democrat, often bucking his party on the critical issue of abortion. But he also points to Cruz's more bipartisan achievements.
And the Texas economy is important, and especially there. I know that Senator Cruz was called upon to work on some permits for international bridges, a couple in the Raider area, one in El Paso and one in Brownsville. And he did that effectively by proposing legislation that that got bipartisan support.
A new Nexstar poll from The Hill and Emerson College reports only 5% of likely voters are undecided. But that could make a difference, with this poll showing a 1-point race.
We'll wrap things up right after this quick break. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. You can stay up with the latest political news with us this week. I want to remind you that Friday is the last day of early voting, and then a week from Tuesday, it is Election Day. Continuing coverage as always over on our website, myhighplains.com. You guys go enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll see you next week.